Recognized nationally, Collins & Lacy offers both civil and criminal defense services for insurance carriers, captives, private businesses, and individuals. From Columbia, South Carolina, with legal news and information, this is The Legal Bench.
This is Christian Stegmaier, and welcome to The Legal Bench. And more importantly, welcome to another edition of Meet the New Guy. And today we're talking with Jerrod Fussnecker, who has joined us within recent weeks. He's doing all sorts of things, including having joined our retail and hospitality practice group, as well as doing some transportation and some construction defect work. Jerrod, welcome.
Hey, I appreciate it, Christian. It's great to be here.
So I'll say this on the front end, Jerrod. I think in the 40 years of Collins & Lacy being in existence, you're probably the most well-educated person to have joined the firm. Of course, you were an undergraduate at West Point and then spent some time at Oxford. And, of course, you've done some additional work through the Army. Talk a little bit about your experience at West Point, how you decided to get there, the whole process of becoming a cadet.
Yeah, I was really fortunate when I was in high school. I happened to get a flyer from West Point inviting me to an academic summer camp. I grew up on a farm outside of Cincinnati. West Point wasn't particularly on my radar, but I did some research into it, and I was excited that their curriculum, it wasn't just academic, but it was, focus on physical education. Every cadet has to take boxing, gymnastics, swimming, and then also the excitement of going to the Army after West Point. So my mom put me in the car that summer, and we drove, the 10 hours to West Point. I did the academic summer camp there, really enjoyed it, and then I pursued the congressional nomination where I was able to go to West Point after that. It's one of those things, unbelievable, life-changing experience, from, my family came to Brown County, Ohio in the 1850s, and we've been farmers ever since. And so, I got to West Point and was just exposed to things I'd never been imagined being exposed to. I had the opportunity to study in Belgium. I did summers at Fort Hood, Texas one summer, shadowing a platoon leader there. The next summer I completed air assault school, and then from there I commissioned into the Army.
So I know from looking at your record, when you got to West Point, you were serious. I think it said at all 8 semesters you were on the honor roll?
Yes, I managed to do that. It was a rough transition from public school in Ohio to West Point, that's for sure. Chemistry and physics, calculus, that was a steep learning curve for me. But I took it seriously, and I enjoyed it. I'm somebody who kind of have an interest in about everything. So I like to pursue a lot of different things. So there, it was just kind of an a la carte of anything you wanted to learn. So I was an economics major, and then I did it's not a minor, it's called an engineering track in computer engineering. Took some German electives because I've always had an interest in Europe, and was hoping to go to Germany later on in the Army, which I eventually was able to do.
Yeah. So obviously you finished at West Point, you commissioned into the Army. You're still in the service. You're in the Army Reserve now, and you're a lieutenant colonel. So this is 23 years at this point?
That's right.
That is fantastic. And I want to talk, obviously, a lot more about your military experience. But you get into active duty. Of course, this is before you go to law school. So how long were you in the service before you went to law school?
So it was a few years, and I did a year in Korea, and then I came here to Fort Jackson, where I was working in basic training. And while there, I met my wife, Rebecca. She was an undergrad at USC here, and she's from Blythewood. And while here, I got accepted to the Army's funded legal education program. And having been away from Cincinnati for a while, I wanted to get back there near family. So I went to the University of Cincinnati for law school, and that was just a great experience. So I was still in active duty officer. The Army put me through law school, and then I had a 6-year obligation to the Army as a JAG following law school.
So you get out of law school what year?
2009.
Which is right in the height of our conflicts both in Afghanistan and Iraq. And so you get out of law school, you're at that point a JAG, correct?
That's correct.
And you end up in Afghanistan for a tour.
Yes. So following law school, I was assigned to Germany. Spent most of my time there as a prosecutor, and then I was assigned to 5th Corps, who received deployment orders to Afghanistan as both the 3-star level command for the U.S. and as a NATO headquarters. So that was a great experience there, helping train Afghan attorneys. So I was stationed in Kabul, but then, either within Kabul, we would convoy to meet with attorneys there at different courthouses in the capital, or we'd get on Black Hawk helicopters and fly throughout Afghanistan to meet with folks. And so, it's a beautiful country, mountainous country, and that was an experience I really appreciate having. And working there in the NATO headquarters, I was an advisor to the deputy commanding general there, and so that was on the full spectrum of military operations, on how the U.S. and NATO can pursue, combat operations in accordance with international law, and had the opportunity to work with attorneys from the UK, Spain, Italy, Australia were all there with us in the office working side by side.
I know that when you joined the firm, our founding partner, Joel Collins, was very excited to have you. Of course, Joel had been an Army JAG, had served in Vietnam, had also taught at West Point, taught international law, something that is near and dear to Joel's heart. So I know that y'all are fast friends at this point in time, probably trading a lot of different experiences, not only from West Point, but just your time in the Army too as well.
Yeah, I think this just landing here at Collins and Lacy has been very fortuitous for me. When I've always been a bit hesitant to make the move to private practice because I have a reserve career. I'm currently a military judge, and so that comes with some obligations throughout the year. But the thing that really drew me here was the fact that, Joel being a former JAG, I kind of there's some certain foundational cultural things that I think typically come with that. There's kind of just a built-in sense of trust when you're working with somebody who's coming from a similar background as you. And then, I'd been a prosecutor at the South Carolina Attorney General's office before I came here, and I saw the listings for a civilian litigation attorney here at Collins and Lacy and all the standard requirements. And then it also said, we'd look really favorably upon it if you had a military and a prosecution background. And I was like, what are the odds of that? I've never seen a listing like that before. And so I was familiar with the firm. Several folks around town over the years had, really had good things to say about it. And so I looked at the firm's website to see who I knew here, and it turned out that Henry McMaster's here, and the two of us had attended a prosecution course together, and then I had done a couple trials in Lancaster County where he was prosecuting, and so I'd seen him up there on occasion. So I reached out to him, and he had great things to say about the firm, because one of my big concerns was just make sure that it was a good culture fit, personality fit, and heard excellent things. And then of course it turns out that that you are the managing partner, and I'd met you through the Military and Veterans Law section. So for me, it's like everything just seemed to line up where it made sense to come here.
Well, you touched on some important points as we head into the 5th decade of our existence. There's some tried and true things that we recognize. We're very committed. People have heard or read about General McChrystal's theory about the team of teams. We apply that religiously in this firm as far as the partners leading teams, and then together we have a very unified firm to where folks who want to come in and want to be entrepreneurs and be leaders, they can do so and build teams around them to where they're serving clients in the way we really want our clients to be served. And just getting to the team aspect of it, we can't emphasize it enough. There are no solo artists at Collins and Lacy, and again, tying in with that, we're very interested and very engaged in the notion of situational leadership, whether you're the managing partner or you're the receptionist answering the phone or the person handling the files or an associate, wherever you are in the organization. We want to equip everybody with the ability and the discretion to exercise leadership when they can and should, all in the service of our client, because the mission for us is service of the client. The other thing that you mentioned that you're kind of spilling the tea a little bit, but I'm proud to tell people that the secret service, the secret sauce of our law firm right now is we are looking to when we're making hires now. We're looking, of course, at veterans. We love the fact that they have been in a team-like atmosphere before, but also prosecutors and public defenders. We have really found an enormous amount of success within the last 5 or 6 years by hiring a lot of those folks from those ranks, because they've all been to court. They've all operated under pressure. They've tried cases to a verdict. They know how to stand up in court. They know how to operate in front of juries as well as judges. And in my mind, litigation is litigation. I can teach just about anything anybody needs to know here, whether it's retail and hospitality or construction defect or transportation or whatever we handle in this firm. We're looking for attitude and capability. And if they're checking those two boxes, we can teach anybody anything. And we've just found that folks who are coming from the criminal prosecution, the criminal defense standpoint, they're well equipped to come into the firm, jump into the action, and be ready to go in a matter of weeks once they learn the basic, blocking and tackling about civil defense. And you're the same way. You've been here for several weeks, and we were talking a little bit before we got going with the video, and we're talking about a dram shop case you're working on, as well as some other matters. And there's obviously a learning curve, but the thing I'm impressed with is when you've asked for help or some guidance or direction from folks about how should I be handling this or how should I be doing this, people are all pitching in, making sure that you're up to speed and squared away. Just by virtue of your experience, of course, where you are now, especially in the service, you've got that bearing to where when you're talking to a client, they recognize and understand I am talking to a real lawyer here. So that's fantastic. I know, after you left Afghanistan, you were a part of multiple prosecutions, some very, very notable, where you had a lot of responsibility, including the Bergdahl prosecution. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, following Afghanistan, I was first assigned to Savannah, Georgia, where I was the officer in charge of the legal center there. And then I also had responsibilities as a part-time military magistrate, followed by a stint at Fort Irwin, California, where I served as a supervisory prosecutor there.
I don't mean to jump in, but it's a funny story. You told me that you were glad for that responsibility at Fort Irwin, but you weren't particularly excited about going to Fort Irwin, to where you actually volunteered to go back to Afghanistan rather than go to Fort Irwin.
That's right. I mean, Fort Irwin's in the Mojave Desert in California, 3 hours east of LA and 3 hours west of Vegas. There's just not a whole lot out there.
This is like 29 Palms for the Marine Corps.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I got to 3rd Infantry Division in Georgia, and I had recently redeployed from Afghanistan, but 3ID was getting ready to go over there. And after I was there for a year, in the Army, they want to send you through a bunch of different assignments to quickly get you ready for higher levels of responsibility. So after a year, they were ready to move me, and 3ID was going back to Afghanistan, and Branch said, hey, we're looking at sending you to be the Chief of Justice out of Fort Irwin. I was like, well, I'm here, and folks are going to Afghanistan. Can I just go back with them? And they said, no, you're going to the Mojave Desert. Said, okay.
That's funny. Yeah. So you were in Fort Irwin for a year?
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
And so at that point in time, my wife...
Did your wife come with you?
She actually did.
Oh, my gosh, what a trooper.
At that point in time, she, after she graduated USC, she moved to Cincinnati, and then we moved to Charlottesville, Virginia for the JAG course, which is about a 4 or 5 month course. And then we went to Germany. Within Germany, my first assignment was in Kaiserslautern for 6 months. And then as soon as a prosecutor position came open, they moved us to Mannheim, and we were there for 2 years where I prosecuted before they closed that base down. So then they moved us to Wiesbaden, and as soon as I got there, I deployed with 5th Corps. And then we moved to Georgia. So she moved literally like 6 times in 6 years for me.
Must be love.
Must be something. I'm fortunate she stuck in there. So when we were in Savannah, she got a job with USC's Beaufort campus. And so she was ready to get back home here to Columbia. And so I had 1 year left that I owed the Army from my obligation from law school. So we said it didn't make sense for Rebecca to go out there to Fort Irwin. And so USC, I worked with her and transferred her here to main campus in Columbia. Once I'd finished my active duty time at Fort Irwin, I moved back here to Columbia, and then shortly afterwards, I was talking to my old boss from Germany and Afghanistan, and he was putting together the prosecution team for the Bo Bergdahl court-martial. Bergdahl in 2009 had walked off his base in Afghanistan, and shortly thereafter, he was captured by the Taliban, who held him in Pakistan for 5 years. In 2014, President Obama returned Bergdahl by trading 5 detainees at Guantanamo Bay in return for him. Once Bergdahl returned, there was an investigation that determined that he had deserted, and so they put together the prosecution team for that, and we prosecuted him for desertion and misbehavior before the enemy. And I was the deputy prosecutor. We had a team of about 25 people total, 10 attorneys conducting discovery. We had over 1 million pages of classified evidence in that case. And, the trial took over 2 years, lots of motions hearings. The lead prosecutor and myself, we spent a lot of time, traveling around the country, tracking down these witnesses who, this is several years later, and a lot of them are out of the Army now, to prepare them all for trial. So, it was a great experience being able to be part of that case.
So the construction defect case with 10,000 pages, you're going to be okay as far as that goes.
Well, it's something new and novel for me, so I'm always interested in learning the next thing.
You're not afraid of discovery, so
that's right.
That's not going to worry you. So we talked a little bit about some of your additional education. I'm fascinated to know, how did you angle for a degree from Oxford? How did that shake out?
So while I was in Germany, I had heard that another JAG attorney had done it several years before. And so I was like, well, let me try. And so I applied, and it's a program, it's a master's in international human rights law. There's about 20 attorneys around the world each year who participate. And so that December, I remember being home for Christmas, and I got an email from Oxford saying that I had been deferred. And I was like, wow, I got deferred by Oxford. That's great. It wasn't a full rejection. And then a month later, they said, you're in.
Wow.
And so I was really excited. And so the Army, I had some great leaders, Colonel Max Maxwell being one of them. And he said, Jerrod, he was my staff judge advocate. He said, we're going to work with you. And so the first year, it was most of the classes were online in a cohort. And then the next summer, I went to Oxford for 5 weeks to do the in-residency requirement. The second year, I deployed, and Colonel Maxwell was my boss while we were deployed. And so I wrote my dissertation about the effects of international human rights law on NATO legal operations in Afghanistan, because it's something I was working with on a daily basis. And then at the end of the deployment, I returned to Oxford for the second summer and finished the residential requirements.
I think everybody has these ideas about Oxford just maybe from the movies or books they've read. What was it like really studying there?
I mean, it's really like stepping back into time, being on that beautiful campus, and being surrounded. I had diplomats in my class. I had heads of NGOs in my class. I mean, just really intelligent people from around the world that helps give a farm boy from Ohio a better perspective of the world.
Yeah. So, did you ever ask them, well, this is a great school and all that, but how many SEC championships have you all won?
That's right. And they're zero. They're struggling.
So we fast forward, and there gets to be a point in time where you get out of active duty in the Army, still maintaining though your service in the reserve. You've become a military judge at this point, which you still have responsibility of doing. Talk a little bit about that. I think you're the first judge we've got, I think, as far as that goes. Molly Flynn, she's a town judge too as well, but you're our first military judge. Talk about what being a military judge is about.
Yeah, so, since leaving active duty, I've had an amazing experience in the reserves. The first few years, I was an adjunct criminal law professor at the JAG school. So while I was prosecuting at the Attorney General's office, periodically throughout the year, I would go up to the JAG school in Charlottesville to teach trial advocacy courses there. And then in 2020, during COVID, I was the one person foolish enough that was willing to mobilize and travel around the country to prosecute special victim cases, and I was based out of Fort Jackson for that, and I had a great experience with that. And I think on the back end of that, I was selected to be a military judge. So I think having a combination of military criminal justice experience and civilian criminal justice, experience helped me become a military judge. And I always joke that being a reserve judge is kind of like being a substitute teacher. When the active duty judges have some type of scheduling conflict, there's 20 of us reserve judges around the country that they call upon to cover down for trials, guilty pleas, motions hearings, warrants. So it's very interesting, and I really am happy that I'm able to continue to serve in that position.
That's fantastic. So there's a point in time you're at the AG's office, the Attorney General's office. What were your responsibilities there?
So I was in the Special Prosecution Division. I got to work with some great attorneys there. I really enjoyed being there. Can't say enough great things about it. And police misconduct was my portfolio that I was in charge of. But I also did several murder cases, sexual assault, human trafficking cases. I was able to do the first trial in the state of South Carolina under their human trafficking statute, and Heather Weiss and I were able to gain a life without parole conviction in Lancaster County in that case.
I know Alan Wilson, the Attorney General, he has made human trafficking and similar crimes kind of a centerpiece of his office. Some has been a priority for during his entire tenure. I know you're proud to have been a part of that prosecution because you talk about things that are meaningful, that really need to be policed, really need to be prosecuted. It's crimes like that.
Yeah, and I had a wonderful experience at the AG's office, and it was a great transition from active duty to practice in the civilian world. And so I got to be in the courtroom a ton. I did cases in over 30 counties in South Carolina, and got to work with some wonderful people there. And so, yeah, I really, truly relished that experience.
So your last stop before you got to Collins and Lacy was again with the Army, but as a civilian lawyer.
That's right. So, I'd mobilized a few years ago as a special victim prosecutor. I'd always wanted, I was always interested in making the transition to civilian litigation at some point in time. a friend of mine from there said, hey, we have an employment litigation position coming open. Would you be interested? And so about a year ago, I made that transition. And so the past year, I was doing Merit Systems Protection Board cases, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission cases, and federal administrative matters. And then recently, with the kind of the chaos that's going on in the federal employment situation, right? I received that email, the fork in the road, right? And it said, if we're looking at doing downsizing, we don't know who's going and who's not, but if you're interested in leaving the federal service, here's a package that we will offer folks that are leaving. And so I really, at that time, I was enjoying my job and everything. But then I said, well, let me look what's out there. And it just so happens that I saw Collins and Lacy's advertisement, and everything just came together.
Yeah. The thing I'm proud about, the conversation I was proud to have with you when you had called me, because, like you said, we had known one another from the Military and Veterans Law Committee with the bar where you were chair, and I'm a member. I'm an ex officio member by being the staff judge advocate of the State Guard. But, one of the things that you were very concerned about, that I was glad to have this conversation, was, you maintain your status as a reservist with the Army Reserve, and you outline, hey, these are my responsibilities as a military judge. And in addition to that, I've got various responsibilities during the course of the year where I'm going to have to go different places in the country to maintain the standard. And, what I related to you, what I would tell any veteran, especially anybody that's a National Guardsman or somebody in the reserve, is there's a place for you at Collins and Lacy because we respect the hell out of that service. And we will accommodate that. I had a story that was told to me. I was clerking when I was in law school, and I had given some thought to I think pursuing either the National Guard or the Army Reserve JAG. And one of the partners I was working for had said, don't do that. Don't do that, because it will make you unemployable with a private law firm. And that was the advice that was given to me back in 1998, 1999. And the thing I would tell anybody, and the thing I told you, is, if anything, that makes you more employable at Collins and Lacy, because, like I said, the ability to be a situational leader at all points in representation of our clients, as well as just the innate and the intrinsic ability to participate in a team, to me, that's invaluable. So, everybody, like I said, like when you look at our job listings, you'll see that paragraph, like, deference given to veterans, including National Guardsmen and reservists, because we mean what we say when it comes to that. And obviously what I related to you satisfied you, and here you are.
That's right. And I mean, I think, if not for that, I probably wouldn't have left, Fort Jackson. Yeah. And so that gave me the comfort level that, okay, I can continue to do the reserve duty that was really important to me, and get the opportunity to come here and work at a great firm.
So now you're at the firm, and you've jumped into the deep water of civil defense. What's the biggest change?
Well, fortunately, a lot of things do actually translate from criminal litigation to civil litigation. So, I'm working on a couple answers that I'm responding to. And so really, it's just making the transition from the rules of criminal procedure to the rules of civil procedure. And rather than looking at elements of crimes, I'm looking at elements of causes of action. So there's going to be a learning curve there, but I'm enjoying it. It's definitely very intellectually stimulating.
Well, we had our big team meeting last Friday, and our team meets every Friday at 9:00. And that room was full of lawyers. Our team now is at this point, I think, either 11 or 12 lawyers for our retail and hospitality. And I said, everybody who's a lawyer, make sure you track down Jerrod and pick a topic and spend an hour with him, just as Coach Spurrier would say, coaching them up. And, I've talked to a couple lawyers already who've spent some time with you, making sure that you're squared away. And, again, that just illustrates the team concept at Collins and Lacy.
The team has been so hospitable. I could not have asked for a better welcome here. I think just about every one of the attorneys here, I've went to them for help at some point in time, and it really is clear that the culture that I hoped was here, from what I've seen, it is a bunch of professionals that take their work seriously, but really like each other and get along. Because I've always enjoyed the collaborative aspect of the law, of bouncing ideas off of each other, trying to strategize the best way to move a case forward. And there's been plenty of folks that have went out of their way to come see me and try to get me up to speed.
Yeah, one thing we didn't tell Jerrod when he was joining the firm was he was going to be added to a chat. From time to time, somebody will come across something funny on the internet and share it on the chat. So, like I share with people, I said, we're kind of loose serious in as much as we're serious when we're out on the court. We're high performers, we're A-team players, but in the locker room, we're loose and we have a good time with each other. So we talked a little bit about your wife, Rebecca, but you've got twins.
That's right.
Yeah.
Frank and Michael. They're 5 years old. They're maniacs, and they're involved in a lot of stuff, and they're definitely keeping Rebecca and myself busy.
Yeah, I was telling you a story when we had lunch the other day. I've got 2 girls, and girls, that's a different kettle of fish. There's a lot of drama, especially when they get older. But little boys can raise a lot of hell. And you were telling me about you don't worry about your kids being active because they are on their own very active.
That's right. Like our next door neighbors have a 6-year-old and 3-year-old boys, so it's like the 4 of them get home from school every day, and they're in the backyard, beating each other with sticks and chasing each other around and wrestling. So it's just a constant state of chaos at the house, but it's blissful chaos.
That's
so
good stuff.
I really love it.
That's making some good memories, I promise you. So last question. You've gotten a little bit of your bearings around here, getting your sea legs. What's the goal that you're putting out for yourself when Jerrod is giving himself that self-talk? I'm here at a firm that I like, I can see a future at. What kind of goal are you setting for yourself?
Yeah. I've always been told, to chop the wood in front of me, and then everything else will take care of itself. And so, that's where my focus is right now, is laser focused on learning civil litigation and becoming an expert at it. I think looking back on my life, my MO is probably to bite off more than I can chew and then figure out how to get it all done. And so coming in here, I've definitely been thrown in the deep end of the pool, and I've got a ton of case files to work on, and I'm really enjoying it. And I think that's what you got to do to become, the best in the field at something, is you just got to get reps in. And so, and you got to be willing to do whatever the work is, whether, it's a high profile case or, it's just another case that's got to be moved. You got to take all of them seriously, and that's how you get good, like anything else in life. And so, my goal is to quickly get up to speed so that I'm carrying my weight for the rest of the team.
Well, based on your track record, I've got supreme confidence that you're going to achieve that goal and blow right past it. So I can't tell you how thrilled we are to have you with the firm. And, like I've shared with my other partners, I said, he might be the new guy, but keep in mind, he's got a lifetime worth of experience that we can really, really learn from. And, whether it's leadership or actual prosecution experience, litigation-related experience, we're really looking to learn from you two as well. We're really, really excited about that.
I really appreciate that, Christian. And thank you very much for, in this whole process of making the transition. You've been absolutely wonderful, and I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the culture that you've built here and the leadership that you exert every day.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from somebody like you with the experience that you have. I'll send you the $100 later for that too as well. But Jerrod Fussnecker, the new guy, joining us at Collins and Lacy. Thanks so much for being with us. Join us again as we come back with another episode of The Legal Bench, where we'll take up another matter involving South Carolina law. Thank you again.
You You've been listening to The Legal Bench from the attorneys at Collins and Lacy. For more information about the nationally recognized law firm, visit collinsandlacy.com.